Here we go. Good morning. Happy Saturday. Welcome to Sober Mind.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We've got our good friend Kelly on. Today we're going to talk about Kelly's story, her journey with mental health, and the monkey on our backs of this channel, addiction and alcohol. But before we get started, I want to address a couple things. First of all, good morning to my lovely wife, Judy, down there in the bottom left, the Judy
Good
cam.
morning.
And then our co-host, Patrick. Patrick, good morning. And in the spirit of everything that's going on with in the United States, especially with the criticism of drag queen community and the LGBTQ community in general, I just want to make a couple statements. That hey parents, I know you're trying to do a good job, but your child's sexual orientation is none of your fucking business. Also, if your high school good-looking football quarterback son comes home and says, "Mom, Dad, I want to be a drag queen," you should just say, "Go for it." Also, if your child comes home one day and says, "Mom, Dad, I'm gay," your response should be something around, "Sounds good. Let's have dinner," and move on. All right, that's it. I can't believe we're still talking about this shit in today's day and age in the United States of America. So, sorry you all in that community that are going through that. I think it's a bunch of bullshit.
A bunch.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And you have allies.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And just for the record, I fucking hate bullies. Kelly, I think you know that too, so.
I do. And likewise.
I consider myself the ambassador of the LGBTQ community.
It's something I've really admired about you guys. I really loved when you had your flag in your last suburban neighborhood just very proudly in your yard. It was something that made me value you guys even more as friends.
Yep. Thank you,
I think
Kelly.
we're going to be doing this June too,
Yeah,
right?
June 1st, it'll go up. For folks that don't know, we live in Missouri, so it's nice to throw that bad boy up. You can see the people driving by there like, "God damn homosexual."
Just like that. Every time.
That's right.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, most definitely.
Thank you, Patrick. Okay. Let's do this. It's good conversation. Just a chill Saturday, relaxing with all of our friends. Kelly, I have a question for you.
I have an answer.
I was on my run this morning and I was trying to think how long we've known each other. I want to say like 2015, 2016.
So we would have I met Judy at the very end of 2014, I believe.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
And
I was still working at Gomer's, right?
Yes, you were. And I met you, I think early spring of the following year was the first time I met you.
All right. Yes. All right. So that's relevant to my question. Michelle says Patrick has no volume. Can anyone else confirm that? Because I hear him.
Yeah, he sounds good to me. Oh, come on.
No, you're broadcasting, Patrick.
Well, we can just keep going and see what happens.
Stand by. This is the beauty of being live, Kelly. We just edit this out, or we leave it. Oh shit! Monitor only, no output. Monitor and output. Thank you, Michelle. There you go.
Michelle's being promoted to producer.
That's right. Patrick, you made a very nice statement. Can you repeat what you said about loving and whatnot?
Oh, yes. To open up your statement, I said, we are all just learning to give and receive love unconditionally. It's just that some others are hung up on certain areas more so than others.
That is my next tattoo. Okay.
Word salad. Here you go.
Yeah. All right. So, Kelly, we've known each other for, let's just call it 8-9 years, long time. During that time, we hung out quite a bit. Did a lot of barbecuing and drinking. And Judy and I probably did a lot of drinking to excess. Did you ever think I was an alcoholic?
No. And to be completely transparent about that, you guys, because I was having my own struggles behind closed doors too. So I would go and hang out with you guys and be like, well, these are how normal people drink. These are normal people that are, yeah.
Nice.
No, completely. I looked at you guys and was like, oh, these really loving, great communication relationships. You guys were very successful. You balanced everything in my eyes very well, and everything seemed very structured around how you guys imbibed to me from the outside. And even when we would have early craft days,
Oh yeah.
that would start fairly early and go hours, I still would leave
With a lot of wine.
Lots and tastings. That's I
Yes.
think how we did a lot of justification was we would do tastings of things. But no, not at all.
Tastings.
I viewed you guys as being very structured. I didn't realize until you guys started this journey at that point how much you guys had been drinking, and did not view you guys at all as having any type of issues with alcohol. And it felt honestly like I was not being honest with you guys because I kept my history completely a secret from you guys about any of my struggles with alcohol in the past.
Thank you. And confession, that's so interesting. So confession is, I apologize. Judy and I hid it from you and a lot of our friends. Like after you go home, 90% chance we would just get shit faced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm apologizing for putting a veil out there that wasn't really who we are, or maybe. Go ahead,
Why
Judy.
apologize?
I don't
mean,
know.
it's just the way we were. A lot of people. I mean, even Kelly said that she was hiding, a lot of people. I think a lot of addicts hid their stuff just because either fear or self-loathing, or they didn't want to be judged, or fill in the blank.
Excellent point, Judy. We hide that from ourselves, John. And in fact, Kelly, I appreciate you sharing that. We kind of compare in a small sense. We kind of compare each other's to our each Instagram, right? We compare ourselves to the highlight reel, right?
Mm-hmm.
John and
Yeah.
Judy is successful, holding the parties, no big deal, yay! And then you come back and say like, oh my goodness, my drunk is not the same as theirs, or my relationship is not the same with theirs, so I need to hide it. In reality, it's a lot more complicated than that, right? We all have our individual relationship with the addiction and the drink, and it's hard when you're just comparing it to everything else, right? Instead of just taking the time to look inward and seeing your own relationship with it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That's a good point, Patrick. I don't, I guess an apology isn't warranted, but that's always my go-to reaction because I feel like I was not being honest. But then the other side of that is, what was I supposed to do? Just get to be honest? Have you come over and watch me get super sloppy drunk to see who we really were? That's the other side of it. Second question. Would you have ever been comfortable telling Judy or I that we had an issue if you ever saw it?
I would have been. I know how open you guys are and how fluid you are with honesty and how important it is to you both as people. So I do think, had I noticed or felt like, no, to be perfectly honest, I would not have. I would have probably kept it to myself and maybe acknowledged in private to myself that maybe we're all kind of going through the same thing. And then I probably would have brought it up to Judy just separately in a way like, I'm struggling with this, and then just opened the dialogue to see if there was anything that you guys wanted to bring to the table. But that's kind of how I am as a person. Like, I'll bring something like how I relate to it. I'm very much but yeah, no, I probably would have just brought it up to Judy and like my own issue. Like, this is what I'm dealing with. What are your thoughts on this? Or I would have come and said, I'm not going to be drinking. I'm taking a break. And I don't know that I would have. I have a hard time with confronting people about their demons. And I do believe that when people are ready to make changes about their own mental health and their own habits, that's their decision to make. And so that's a big reason why I wouldn't have done that. I've seen and have made the mistake before of trying to bring something to someone's attention when I felt like they really needed help, and I thought at the time that they were reaching out and asking for it in a passive way, and I was very wrong. So in that sense, I try to be very respectful about everybody knowing when their own time is to make those decisions, short of you being harmful to yourself or others or anything along that nature. But with who you guys are as people, I had a lot of confidence that you guys were aware of yourselves, and I've always really respected the self-awareness that you and Judy have. So I don't know that I would have brought it up to you, because I also would have not wanted to offend in any way.
I think we put on quite the show, babe.
We did. I was going through. Thank you for that very candid and open answer. That gives me a lot to ponder today. I'm curious how I need to digest that, because, babe, how would this reel have played out? Hey, hon, I had lunch with Kelly today, and Kelly said that she may have a drinking problem, so she's gonna back off a little bit. How would we have responded back then? I don't know.
I think we would have responded. I mean,
good for her.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's to Kelly.
Good for her. Yeah, here's to Kelly.
Compartmentalization.
Yes.
There it is. She's doing her thing, and it would be oblivious to yourself.
Yep.
I
don't think we would have turned the camera in.
I am too busy swimming in my own shit that to pass judgment on other people would just be absolutely exhausting, and I wouldn't have enough effort for it.
Yeah,
I would have never wanted to turn the camera on myself.
Well, Judy and I knew for a long time, but that would have been the easier thing to do. We were afraid to tell each other. For the last 3 years, we've been wanting to quit. I don't know if you knew that. Till one day we just woke up and our body was like, "Hey, motherfucker, you are done, dude." We're like, oh, my kidneys.
I feel my liver mad.
Yeah.
I'm also quite codependent. So I'm working through that separately from anything else. So that's where a lot of like my hesitation, to be honest with people about my views and feelings and emotions towards them, is I always have wanted to just be the supporting person. Like, I'm here for whatever you need. And I, put on a happy face kind of thing.
Put everybody else's needs before your own.
Sometimes.
Ding, ding, ding. Winner.
That's Kelly. You carry around a lot of love to give out, for sure. So I think that's a good segue, what you just said. Let's talk about, Kelly, what is your relationship with addiction/alcohol?
Well, good morning. So I grew up with alcoholism and addiction being something that was surrounding me that people didn't talk about or did. So I come from a split family. My biological father's entire family has struggled with alcoholism. From my great-grandfather, my grandfather, my father, and I think I started young. Irish Catholic family. First condoned alcoholic beverage was at my grandfather's funeral.
How old were you?
Oh boy.
I was 9. And my 12-year-old cousin was allowed to become inebriated at that. And it was a very supported thing. There were jokes made. Your head keeps bobbing, we're going to take your beer away.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And I had another side, my mother's side of the family, if there was any type of internal issues, they were very quiet about it. They were very normal in their drinking, social drinking at every occasion, especially Christmas. The men especially always had some type of beverage in their hand. Christmas, everybody would go out and have a cooler and play bocce ball, and women would stay inside and have mimosas. And so I started that, and I was very jaded towards alcohol because my father was quite the impressive alcoholic. He actually died of with Korsakoff syndrome as being a diagnosis. He had borderline personality disorder as a diagnosis, manic depressive disorder, and Korsakoff syndrome is alcohol-induced dementia. I don't know. And he was 47 when that happened, and I'm 34. So I, when I was younger, I tried very hard to be very against alcohol, to the point that if my adopted dad was having even one drink when we were at a social setting, I would go into full panic mode. And when I tried to even address him drinking alcohol at home, making me uncomfortable, and now that we have this language to acknowledge this, the smell of alcohol on their breath would put me in a place that I didn't want to be, and it would trigger me, and I would become very manic as a child, very erratic. I would want to call my biological dad, and that whole relationship was very tumultuous. But I started actually drinking alcohol, sneaking alcohol in junior high a little bit, with friends, as you do. I did the same and I kind of took a break from it because my father was put into a nursing home when I was at a very young age due to injuries he sustained. He became a ward of the state because he had gone to a state facility inebriated, injured so many times that he actually was admitted into a nursing home because of that whole process as well. I went my senior year. Yeah. So my senior year, the summer between leaving for college and graduating, I took up drinking again in the classiest way that you do, with pretty much just schnapps and pucker and really gross things like that.
Yeah.
Because, whatever, some stuff and Sprite, throw a cherry in, you look cool, right? And my freshman year of college, I went away. And I was going to change the world, and I was going to do all these things. And I found a really great community that also really loved their drugs and alcohol. And I started drinking very heavily my freshman year of college. And there were a couple different instances that it caused physical damage. I was reaching out to very toxic relationships that I'd had in the past, and while I would be inebriated, seeking that kind of comfort and familiarity. And then, and I say this to this day, due to, all my substance abuse and alcoholism, I ended up moving home to go back to community college after my freshman year because I was not prepared to move away. I was not. It was way too much freedom coming from a very structured home. It was a lot of controlling. Like I said, we were raised Catholic, so everything was really kind of kept in the closet. And so I moved home. And to this day, I say that Lennon saved my life because I ended up getting pregnant with him when I was 20. And had him when I was 21. And from the time I got pregnant until after my daughter was born, I can count on, I think I drank maybe 3 times in that whole stretch. I was breastfeeding, and I was very self-aware at that time. I didn't want anyone to have alcohol around me. If we were at an event, I wouldn't let my then husband, I would, if he was drinking at all, I didn't want him around me. I would make him go brush his teeth. I didn't like the smell of it. I was afraid it would trigger me into wanting a drink while I was pregnant, and I was so terrified for that. And so when I started going through my separation, I got a group of individuals around me that were being very supportive of me leaving my current situation for a couple different reasons. And I started drinking very heavily and going to bars, which was not something I had done outside of a very short stint in college before then. And I very, very quickly escalated into an unmanageable situation. I would leave work, stop and have a drink. Before I knew it, it would be 3 hours later, and I'm sitting there and I'm making all these great friends, and you just get caught up in this cycle because you're feeling so unloved and empty and all these other aspects of your life, and then they bring you into this other situation where you feel a sense of belonging because everybody else there is also damaged and like going through these things. And that was probably the worst thing that I could have done at all in any of those situations. I had a lot of run-ins with the law due to my drinking for a couple different reasons, and I actually ended up almost losing custody of my children over this and all of this. I actually went and did a 28-day inpatient rehab during this whole process. And I wasn't honest with myself or a lot of other people why that was my choice. And I don't think I really put my hooks into the experience of what it needed. I was kind of looking for a way out of a lot of different things and not wanting these major consequences that were coming down the pipeline for me as well. After I did my 28 days, immediately turned around and started drinking within a week of leaving rehab because it was a 12-step program. I don't do well with shame. And it was very shame-based for me. I was having a lot of trouble internally and putting on a complete fake facade when they picked me up, when I got home, lying and saying I was going to meetings because I just had not really been honest with myself or any of my counselors about the origins or how I was really feeling. I also did not really accept that it was a relationship with alcohol and that I was really an alcoholic. I really wanted to be normal. I was really fighting being these people in my life that had caused so much hurt and harm to me and so many others. And I was just, I'm not that person. I'm not going to be this person. I'm not going to be this parent. And by this point, my biological dad had passed away, and my adopted dad had passed away too. I had never really processed that either, and was very angry with a lot of people. I was very angry with my then husband and angry at my situation, very angry at myself for allowing me to get to that point. So I burned a lot of bridges with my family at that point. They were ready to wash their hands of me, and rightfully so. I had caused a lot of damage and a lot of heartache and just did not know how to be honest with anybody at all. And that's where like that addiction and codependency, when they get hand in hand, people are often, it's almost like a borderline personality disorder that comes into play because you just want to tell everybody what they want to hear to get you back to that spot of grace with them. And I struggled with doing that a lot. But again, like I said, I didn't really accept my relationship with alcohol or at what point I really was. And I just thought it was a circumstantial thing. I was blaming it on everybody else. Well, if you hadn't have done this, I would not be out drinking. If our family wasn't falling apart, I wouldn't have done this. If my childhood hadn't have been this, if I would just be able to have this conversation with this person one last time and have some type of acknowledgement, it wouldn't be there. So, we went through all that. I had to completely start over after that.
How old were you then?
So 2015, so I was 24 going on 20, so I was 25 going on 26 at the time, and I was 26 going on 27 at the time, and I moved.
Is this when you started actually looking at the inner yourself?
I did. And at that time, I got into a relationship with someone that drank very heavily and was very involved in the craft beer scene. I moved here to Lee Summit at that time, and all of my friends came from the bar. They all came from those social settings. And so I didn't know, and I loved these people, and they loved who they thought I was. So I wanted to continue that. I wanted these people to be like, oh, she's so great and normal. and just, And like you guys said, I was going home and continuing to drink and having these vicious cycles and waking up the next day and just absolutely hating myself, making terrible decisions due to all of that. And so when that relationship just continued to become more and more and more and more volatile, I had a really hard time stepping away from all of it because, again, I was just really afraid to be alone.
Yeah.
So my relationship with alcohol has definitely waxed and waned over the years, and my acceptance of myself as an alcoholic, I think, has also waxed and waned with that over the years too. I am notorious for going through really great periods where I'm so proud of myself, and I'll go to an event and it's just the one drink with, this is what always gets me. We'll go somewhere where there's a pairing. And I would always justify it that way as a way to ease back in. I'm not driving, the kids aren't here, this is how this is meant to be experienced, and I don't want to offend anybody, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So
Let's sweet Jesus Christ. Kelly, I need a minute to digest all of that. Good job. Wow.
I have a couple questions.
Just a sec, babe.
Yeah, yeah. Before we get into questions, I just want to honor the vulnerability here first.
Yes.
That takes a
Most
lot
definitely.
to sort through all that, and you went through that in a number of minutes here. But I think everybody on this call knows as well as I do that takes years to get to that point to be able to speak like that. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't know. Man, dang it! I didn't know you struggled with it. So we were all condoning that. Babe, it was the whole the home brewing
scene.
I
yeah.
joke. There's people that can do it, but it's alcoholism disguised as a hobby.
absolutely.
Right, yeah. So it was just always that, well, we're brewing beer. We got to drink beer while we're brewing. And that was one of the weird, idiotic things that Judy and we talk about now, that 4 or 5 years ago, we wanted to quit. But I told myself, I'm like, I just built this Keyser. I got all these taps.
Yeah. And we're so embedded in the brewing system, the brewing
But
community.
what our friends do if we quit.
Yeah.
Sunk cost fallacy of your identity.
Yes.
While I brew beer, what would they think of me if I don't drink beer, right? Or I have all this stuff.
Yeah.
I have to keep on going because I identify as this.
I even told my my doctor one time that they were, or the nurse, they were asking me, well, how many times do you drink? And I said, well, I drink daily. And she kind of looked at me and I said, well, I'm a home brewer, so that was my excuse. I brew beer, so I have to drink.
Then it's okay. Yeah.
Exactly.
So there was a lot of us, meeting you all the time at Grains and Taps and other places and drinking. I got a couple questions. If we're getting too heavy, Kelly, just we can sidebar with some other things I wanted to talk about, but just let us know, because you did a lot of unloading there. Thank you for your candor. That was a lot, to echo Patrick's comment. But I think Judy has a question. Do you want to make any statements?
No.
Okay.
I just had one question. How do you feel about your relationship with alcohol and sobriety and that whole concept, the self-love? How do you feel about that now?
I've really accepted where I am. It's just having the thoughts and behavior to follow through with what I know at this time. And it's much better. I'm in a much more supportive situation than I have been in the past. I'm very well aware that I have a very tumultuous relationship with alcohol, and it is a relationship just like anything else still. And you mourn it just like anything else. But I think having the transparency with my partner and my children has been really eye-opening, and discussing that on a family level and not keeping it behind, be coming home late and not keeping it behind, you know, oh, I'm just going to go out with a couple friends. Oh, I'm going to go have a lunch, you know, just being transparent about what, you know, having that accountability, I think, is also very helpful for me, and having the support of just being okay as who I am, I think was the biggest thing that I needed to learn. And self-love's kind of a new concept for me. I've really just learned how to do that. I'm going to say really in my 30s. That's really when the whole loving Kelly for who she is was there. So, and you know, I was always so self-conscious about how loud I was or how weird I was. But when you're drunk, it's okay. Because everybody's loud
weird
and obnoxious when they're drunk. But it's okay to be the big force in the room as long as you're saying and reflecting the right things. And that's kind of where I've had to channel all of that for myself, I think. So my journey with self-love is definitely not over, and I still struggle with days where I just hate myself, or I think I'm making a decision to help me relax, and really it's not like I'm very much a yes person. I say yes to a lot of things, even if it is not in my best interest. So that's part of self-love I'm really working on and getting better at, I think, lately.
I think you're doing a great job.
Thanks.
It takes a ton of work. It's tough to dig. Our viewers and Judy and Patrick know, I just caught myself like a month ago. I was walking after a run and I was like, I feel happy. I feel good about myself. And then I'm 50 years old and it's finally starting to get to that stage. I don't want to discourage you, but it shouldn't take 50 years. I'm just a damaged gene pool here. So Kelly, I'm super curious. So, yeah, I did not realize that all of these years that you struggled with it. Contrary, Judy and I thought you were that person that can control it too. Man, the veil of lies that us alcoholics all do to each other. Fascinating. And so, it's very cliche. It's these cycles, though. You didn't like the smell of it. I didn't like the smell of it. You end up getting drunk, early age drinking, but you didn't like your parents doing it. You told me that Lennon hates it now too. And I totally, we know that feeling too. We know the feeling.
Yeah.
You're like, so it sounds like obviously you have a desire to be sober. What's your trigger? What happens? How long do you go? And then.
So I can do very well for even months at a time. And it will be those good times that send me into those when everything's going well. And then I'm like, it's just one. It's cool. And it's on a weekend. Like I said, it's on a weekend. Kids aren't here. This is a structured drink. When you start structuring when you're going to drink and you're like, that's not normal.
No.
It's not
and
normal.
it's never just one.
No, it's, well, and that would be the thing. I would go out and I would do that thing. I'd be like, I'm going to go and I'm just going to have one. And then I would
have one.
And then the next week it would be like, well, again, it's Saturday. I'm going to have one. Turns into 11.
Yeah.
But my triggers would usually be anytime I was starting to feel abandoned, which happens a lot. That's probably my biggest trigger is whenever my abandonment starts to get poked at and I feel like I'm going to be left alone, or I feel like I'm not being an adequate partner, or I feel like I'm not adequate at work, or I'm not being an adequate mother. And I've said, and usually, again, I've said yes to too many things, and I've started to like let people down, and it becomes a cycle. And that's really when I start getting in my head and get the efforts, and I'm ready to go and just relax in whatever shape or form that may be.
It sounds like you have a very strong inner critic.
Siskel and Ebert, usually two thumbs down.
So Kelly, this is a hard-hitting question. You can't drink just one.
Right.
So I'm curious of your rationalization. You don't believe when this sounds super accusatory. We're all alcoholics, so we know where this is.
No, I know. I know that tape. I know what happens. I know when I do it, that if I go home, and this is the irony of it, if I only have like one drink or something like that, and I would go home and I would try to hide it, I would get angry. I would be a very angry person. I would get very resentful because my brain would I would be lucid enough. I wasn't sober, but I was aware enough that internally my brain would be going through all of these different traumas that I had and knowing I would have anxiety about, oh my gosh, I'm coming home and I'm, being that person that I'm trying to show that I'm not. And I would get into these and then I would get very resentful about everybody at home. And really, what I think it boils down to is I would be wanting to continue to drink. And I had stopped drinking to come home to show that I was normal and that I could only have one. But really, it would set off like this whole cycle of behaviors that would go on and usually end up in a fight. And it's, everybody knows when you've been drinking. I think that that's the thing that was really hard to just know is like, well, everybody knows. Everybody knows when you've had a drink or two. You can, and it goes back to some of those triggering things that we talked about. There's the smell and the glazed over eyes and everything. And for anybody that ever saw me after I was drinking, I can't hide if I've been drinking at all. Like, eyes go bloodshot, my face gets flushed, my decibel level goes up 2-3 octaves, and I just start talking to and I interject in conversations inappropriately a lot, just out of nerves and things like that. My palms will get sweaty. So yeah, I would be aware, but it would also kind of click into what I felt like I needed that day. And if I felt like I needed to be around a different set of people, or if I felt like I was in a different headspace, or, alcoholics can justify anything, right? I mean, we can,
addict brain.
Yeah, I mean, we can justify taking the door off the hinges and painting it purple, green, blue, and orange, and then breaking it into a couple of different pieces and then putting it back on. And, how many projects do you start after you've been drinking and wake up the next day and you're like,
what in the heck was I doing?
I can sympathize because the addict brain at that point, not only do you play the tape forward and you say, I know this is going to end badly, the addict brain immediately turns back around and goes, well, I fucking know that, but I deserve this right now. Yeah. And it's justified. So saddle up. We're doing this. Get on board whether you like it or not, because here we go.
Yeah, you've survived it 100 times. You're going to be okay.
Right. And it's a justification that you deserve it. And that's where even like the shame doubles down on the tail end is like, you asshole, you played this ahead. You knew what was going to happen, yet you decided to go through with it. And it is so powerful. Like, I know that dialogue so well. At least for me. Sorry, I just heard a lot of very similar things when you're in it. Like on this show or whatever this thing is, we talked about foreboding joy, that when you are the happiest, sometimes those are your biggest triggers to be able to drink, because you're justifying that. Your addict brain is like, all right, this is great. You deserve this.
Yeah. You've earned it.
So I did have a question, and you've done a lot of work, but you've also brought up a lot of discussion points, and you talked about recent work around your codependency. Can you speak to how any work in that recently has given you insights on your addiction or your relationship with alcohol or your sobriety?
Yeah. So when I start really working on myself a lot with that, and a lot of it is not saying yes, writing things down, saying, I will get back to you. Up until recently, I've worked a lot. And again, a lot of my codependency comes from being that, God complex, imposter syndrome. I need to be everything that you need, because I promise when I die, they're going to put, she was a good employee. And and that was what I strived for a lot, because it was really one of the only places that I was succeeding was at work. That actually ended up being affected by my alcohol a few years ago as well. And when that happened, that was a pretty rude awakening for me as well.
When you were a kid and your family dynamic, did you feel like you were the mender, like the one, like that, the glue?
Absolutely.
So like whenever shit would go down with any family member, you felt encumbered upon that the mending process had to go through you. Like you had your finger in at least something to mend it.
Or it was my fault. Or the conflict was my fault. That was a lot of it. And
even shit that wasn't yours.
Correct.
Yeah.
Now, there was a lot put on me as a child that should not have been. And I have learned to have grace towards people that are even no longer around for me to have these discussions with because of that. So speaking to that, it's self-care, 100% self-care. Reading a book that I want to read, listening to music that I want to listen to, you know, taking time for me, making sure that I do my yoga, that I do my affirmations, that I do meditate in whatever sense that is to me that day, which often looks different. But self-care in a healthy way, spending time making my children successful and healthy has been my biggest thing, and I'm trying not to become overbearing and project a lot of things onto them. And that has helped a lot with my codependency. And then again, having a partner that not necessarily puts me first, but reminds me to think about situations from my own perspective first, and not to always be like, yes, it's great that you've said that you will do all these things. Can you do them? Do you have the time to do them? Do you feel well enough to do these things? And know that it's okay to step back and say, even to sometimes putting yourself first is not letting people down. And that, I think, was the big narrative that was there for me for a while, Patrick. But I appreciate that. That was great.
No is a full and complete sentence and does not need explanation at times. And that is one of the fundamental things that I've had to teach my kids too. You know, I had to learn it when I was 40, but you know, whatever.
Michelle put that in the chat, coincidentally, Patrick.
Yeah. Great minds think alike. Thanks, Michelle. Yeah, the other thing too, you know, with the partner is I identify with the rescuer as well. The person that has to put on the cape. My value comes from being validated from others, and that often takes on roles of like I will wear other people's issues, or I will take their problems on as my own. Like I need to solve it. You know, I'm you know, maybe if I take every fucking shitty job, then I can be seen, right? Then, you know, your epitaph statement was a knife to the heart for me, because I feel that one too. But the point that I had to learn with my partner was, and it sounds like you have a great one, like it's not necessarily being there to solve the problems for them. We call it holding space. Like my job is not to be the savior, the fixer, or whatever. My job is just to be like, you know, I will hold space. However, I can be here to support you. You let me know. And sometimes that's just being a kicking post, right? Or sometimes that's just being like, you know, hey, you're doing a lot, like you've committed yourself to a lot, you know, let's just make sure that Kelly's part of that conversation too, right?
Yeah.
You know, where does she fit into giving all of this to everybody else?
Yeah. Learning that words matter just as much as your actions, I think, is something that took me about a decade to really grasp. So giving both of those things their equal weight and time is good. I've gotten much better, especially I would say probably since the pandemic, because that taught me a lot. Actually, my sobriety was probably some of the easiest time in my sobriety was then, because everything was closed and I got to continue to go to work, and I didn't have all these outside influences and stressors on there, and was able to, and we were really focused on putting ourselves first when we weren't in those spaces.
Which is kind of odd, because I've heard a lot of people who, when the pandemic hit, they actually went the opposite direction. They actually drank more, which I think we did too.
Yeah, it was a coin flip at that point. Kelly brings up a good point. Like, we're just on that treadmill all the time. Go, 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 validate myself with somebody else. Or, I bury myself in the work so I don't have to see me.
Yeah.
Right. That's the addiction. The addiction for codependency and drugs and alcohol, I think, are very related. And there's many people that would speak to this. It's almost as if we don't have the correct coping mechanisms to self-soothe. And so I call it the void to avoid. Right. And when finally the entire world said pause, many of us finally, like alcohol was the mute button for me. We got to pause everything, and it gave us time to reflect. And I'm glad, for some, it gave that space. For others, like you said, Judy, it just amplified the time for the inner critic to start chattering. So it felt like a deviation at point for two extremes. So
Yeah.
Sage wisdom from Patrick, free of charge.
More word salad for you. Just let me know when you get full.
Kelly,
Michelle. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, babe.
I said Michelle said she was talking about she said very similar and familiar codependency. She said she was a professional at it, and I can attest to that one because she was definitely a professional codependent.
Oh yeah. Again, thank you for the courage to be this candid. I'm curious. This is a tough question. So I was in Omaha a couple weeks ago. I was having a real shitty week, and I called Judy. She was having a shitty week. She said, I just got off the phone with Kelly. She called crying and apologizing because she got drunk last night. And I was like, is she on a sobriety journey? What's going on? I didn't know that this was a thing. And then the second I said, why does she feel like she has to report to us? So I didn't know. We're here to help. What's next for you?
So right now I'm really, really working on accepting my alcoholism as a whole. I think is really the point that I'm at and have been working on myself with a lot. And I felt the need to reach out because we had already discussed me coming and doing this. And I had been in a really great space at that time and was very excited to. But I felt like I needed to be honest about...
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, I felt I didn't want to come here to this space without that transparency and honesty with you guys. That there had been... That's what had happened. And it was... how many times can we say this? It was a completely unintentional escalation is what had happened. There was a lot of shame that was going on, and again, where things had started as like a social, I didn't want to say no, I didn't want to let this person down. It was supposed to be just a very small, harmless thing. Yeah, I know. I say I know, but do I?
I call it, I should be doing this. I should be sober when I do this, or I should be a certain way. Certain realms call it, you started shooting all over yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of you for showing up, as a codependent person. Like I can sympathize because I can see you carry a lot of shit that's not yours. Mm-hmm. And you are a very strong person. And you showing up today, regardless of shooting or not, I am so proud of you.
You've got so much.
It takes a lot.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of you for actually just picking up the phone and calling and letting us know. You totally didn't have to do that. We would have never known. But for you to take the time to pick up the phone and call us, that was pretty awesome.
I think that you guys have had, I respect so much the honesty that you and John have had through this whole process, and sharing that with me. I felt so privileged when you guys told me that you were going to stop drinking. It was, I remember, so when you guys stopped drinking, you called us to come over and pick up some of your leftover supply.
All of them.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we gave a lot of it away. We cooked with a lot of it and things like that. But I remember saying, I was like, this is what I should be doing, and this is what I know I need to be doing. I was kind of, and at that point, I had a very aware relationship. Like I said, waxing and waning. Sometimes I become aware, sometimes I get into a lot of denial, and it really has a lot to do with the people and content that I'm surrounding myself with at that particular time as well.
Okay, I'll interject there. Kelly, I want to tell you, ever since I've known you, you radiate this bundle of, you've got so much love to give. You really do. You're one of those people, when we were mentioning Kelly, people are like, oh, Kelly. It's that like, oh, she's got so much love. I know this sounds super cliche, and I'm not a professional, but you need to start injecting some of that back around on you. Patrick said it the other day when we were talking about this, because I gave him a heads up about your, I didn't know it was a relapse because I didn't know you were doing that, but it's the relapsing for a lot of folks is part of the journey.
Yeah.
It's not an excuse, but there's never going to be any judgment. It's something that you want, so just keep on trying. And I think that, again, I've said this 1,000 times because I'm that cliche guy, but when Judy gets stressed, when I get stressed, Michelle, all of us that struggle with this, it helps just to pick up the phone and tell someone.
Yeah.
I'm fucking justifying some bullshit in my head
Yeah.
about this one drink at a tasting that we know what's going to happen, and just I think by the time you talk about the sentence, you're like, all right, I need to go take care of my son or do something else anyway. And then it just goes away. I get it. Kelly, I get it. It is so fucking loud in my head sometimes. They're just clown show of
You spent years chemically rewiring your brain.
Yeah.
Some grace and some sympathy is okay. In fact, it's warranted.
Most definitely.
I really struggle with grace, Patrick. That's a hard thing for me. I have the hardest time giving that to myself. I really am my hardest critic, and I love that that's how everybody views me, and I do have a lot of love that I love to give to everybody. But when it comes down to it, a lot of that just comes from being really afraid that I'm going to be abandoned and that people aren't going to love me anymore, and that if I don't give all of this to you, and I'm terrible about emptying my bucket before the end of the day. I'm bad about it. I will give and give and give and give and give and give and give, and even at my new job, I had to reel myself back in with it to not exert to more than I could without any knowledge. I'll even go as far as to inhibit any type of actual progress to be made, because I just want everyone to be happy. I want everyone else to be okay, because then if they're okay, then they're still gonna love me and everything's gonna be fine, because I'll still have all these people, even though I may not be okay.
I mean, it's amazing the structures that we build. Think about the steps that you went to get to I'm okay, right? They have to be okay, then everything's okay, then I can be okay. That's how we built that complicated thing, instead of just learning like, can I learn to be okay? Just get to the point first. And then with the relapse stuff, a good person told me, like, he spent a lot of time building an old car or whatever, and you finally got it roadworthy, and you're out on the road and you get a flat tire. And then what do? Do you get out of the car and go, well, fuck it, I got a flat tire, and burn the thing to the ground right there, right? What I'm saying is, you get out and you change the tire, you do the work. The point is, the work that you've done beforehand is not negated by one bad experience. In fact, it is also that fuel to allow you to reflect like, hey, I've done all this work beforehand. And it is still valid on my journey. It is still part of who I am. Same with the crappy feelings. I give all this love because I keep all the shitty stuff for myself, and I only radiate the good stuff outward. That's okay. At the same time, you just got to reflect like, hey, look, maybe I need to find a way to empty this bucket. And you're going on that journey right now. You're figuring it out. It's going to be different for everybody else. So that's kind of why I'm just so proud of you for just showing up, right?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I think it's as we are learning in 2023, there are many things that are spectrums, gender
Yeah.
and sexuality and things like that. And I think that accepting that that's kind of been my sobriety journey, even though my end goal is, complete acknowledgement and being happy and healthy within myself, moving forward day to day as I do. I think that I had somebody explain to me that sometimes sobriety goals for people are also a spectrum. And while I respect that, that can't be my stance on it. So what I mean by that is individuals who are like, I'm going to drink only on the weekends, or I'm going to only stick to special occasions, and I'm not going to drink. And they consider that success, and that's great if somebody can adhere to that. But I've learned that that's not how my tape plays.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Your friend said she loves you.
I love you, Cassie.
Cassie, thank you for subscribing, by the way. There's two things. I digress, man. This could go on. Did I tell you, Patrick? This could be like a 3-hour show, but we'll just keep going. There's a couple things I want to dive into. What I found was, on a couple of these episodes, I talk about my depression before my medication really started working, and there was times. So about the love and just receiving it. I'm saying this in a real bad way, but what I found really helpful is I went up to Judy one day and I said, can you hold me? Just hug me, but I don't want to give anything back. I just stood there with my arms down and she embraced me really tightly and it felt really good. That's when I started to realize that I was finally getting to the point to where maybe I could accept some love. I've done that twice after that. It's probably not fair. It's very cheap. Just like, I don't want to give anything back.
No.
Just give me that
It's totally
hug.
fine. Yeah.
I was about to suggest the same thing because I had to go through another exercise, and my coach, Kelly, maybe this could help you, maybe not. Take it or leave it. But if you can wake up each morning and look in the mirror and just say, I see you, I love you for who you are, and I'm proud of you. And just leave it. You don't have to put any fucking qualifiers of, you did this, you helped so many people. Just, I see you, I love you. And it sounds so cheesy and sounds so Stuart Smalley, like I'm Al Franken on Saturday Night Live going, gosh darn it, I'm good enough. That's the response that we're trying to get past. We laugh because we don't want to allow that in.
Yeah.
Just practice it. It sounds so cheesy, but if you can do it, it helped me a lot, because to move past it was finally like, I have a lot of flaws, and you know what? And that's okay. I get to show up every day and participate with my friends and my family on just being a better Patrick. And today, like you said, is not, I don't say today I'm going to not drink for the rest of my life. Today is like, I can control the present. I'm just not going to drink today, and I'm just going to try and work on, being the better person that I can be in the small capacity that I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see you and I love you and I'm proud of you.
Yeah. I see you're getting emotional. Do you want to quit or do you want?
No.
Okay.
I'm
I have
crier.
something.
all it takes is one ASPCA commercial and it is Waterworks for like 20 minutes. So this is good. I like to cry. It's good for you.
Babe,
It's
I had
a
to
good self-soothing mechanism. These are things that we learn early as kids. If we don't have the parents to emotionally regulate, we have crying, we have thumb sucking, we have tantrums, we have physical capabilities to self-soothe, and they're okay. I shat all over myself because I get weepy at my kids, the Disney movies, and it's like, what are you doing? You're a 30-year-old man. You're not supposed to do that. You know what? Like, I had to learn to say, like, fuck you. They're trying to tell a good story about emotional bonding or personal growth. That's okay if you identify with that. Right?
I cry at
If you
almost
get-
every Disney movie.
What I'm saying is, like, these are things that we don't need to bury anymore. Saying I shouldn't, and I'm so proud of you for being able to come on and show that vulnerability. That's part of it. Like, fuck you. I don't need to carry, like, being a stoic person or locking that all away. This is who I am. I show up as myself every
yeah.
day.
I think that
Yeah.
there is a huge stigma with everyone who is not successful at sobriety right off the bat. Right here. I mean, I am one of those people. When it didn't stick the first time, I hadn't acknowledged that there was my own way of doing things at that point, and there was so much shame involved.
Yeah.
That just triggered so many things I was not ready to deal with, I think. And when I focus on myself, I do better. That's just, it's so simple. It's so dumbed down, but it's so true.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
My other question. Sorry, babe. I had two and I only got the one.
Oh, go, by all means, go ahead.
I forgot. Oh, the anytime you want to talk thing. We're serious about that. Judy and I have been trying to find sober relationships with people, and it is super fucking tough.
You guys have said that, yeah.
We got like we have two. And every time I try to make, and it's Patrick and Sarah and Emily, they're those, I call them the Sarahs. That's my new thing. Those people that can't have one drink.
Mm-hmm.
Baby
That's
steps, John.
Yeah.
You spent decades building the other identity, right?
I know.
Just put it out there. It'll
Yeah.
come. There's many people on here that, we're connecting with.
I know. My
strong
tattoo
way
artist,
that we
though,
do it.
Paul, he's sober, and him and his wife, and I've asked him several times, and he just keeps fucking ghosting me.
Well, they're very busy.
That's right.
I think that sobriety is becoming very socially acceptable now. I have noticed a lot of mocktail drinks. There have been menus that are popping up places. There are more and more sans alcohol events that are being held. And I think as a society, we're finally acknowledging that substance use, I don't use the word substance abuse. I will say that now. I don't use that. I don't like that word. It makes it seem like you're an offender or that you're doing something wrong. So, but I think that, let me get back on track.
I can interject.
The society going towards
Yeah.
more acceptance
I
of
think
sobriety.
that we're really accepting that sobriety is a way of life for a lot of people, and that we can be encouraging of that and still have social interactions. And I think for decades that was something, especially in the United States and even in a lot of other countries, that was not something that they did. We celebrate everything in the United States with food and alcohol primarily. Some type of libation or leisure activity to release stress instead of learning how to just process things on your own and experiencing the emotions of them. And I'm proud of us as a society is moving forward with that. I think that there's a lot of work that still needs to be done, but I do really like that the last few times I've gone to establishments, we went to a birthday party at Main Event the other day, and they had a mocktail menu that was, even floofy drinks for kids, and it wasn't just Shirley Temples. And so it's nice that they're kind of having that inclusive attitude towards everybody on different spectrums of leisure. I think is a good point that we're getting at finally.
Yeah, it's funny. Alcohol is one of the more insidious ones. I know harder drugs can have chemical mechanisms that can make them more addicting, but alcohol, to me, the societal acceptance sometimes really kind of made me go insane in the early part of sobriety. And a good exercise here to see how pervasive it is if you see any ad or any mention of alcohol, replace it with a hard drug and realize how insane it is. For example, it's beer 30 somewhere, might as well crack one open now. What if you said, it's meth 30,
Right.
Why don't you just go ahead and shoot up now? You're like, holy shit, Patrick, that's a little extreme. Let's not talk there. And it's like, that's kind of our relationship though with the, other substance, and it's just because alcohol is so accepting that it becomes so I think that's why it's so subdued or just kind of tucked in the corner, because you become that mirror for everybody else.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
Like
it was
that.
crazy when I first started my sobriety journey. I would watch TV, and the amount of alcohol commercials was astounding. I mean, and I never knew it when I was in the middle of it, because I just thought that, well, that's just the way it is. That's just what's on TV. But all of a sudden, you stop drinking and it's just you're inundated with alcohol, beer, hard liquor, and it's completely
Romanticized.
yeah,
That
and
Bacardi
it's
commercial with the guy carrying the bottle around, and then they all end up at the bar each. Like, I'd be like, duh,
I think
I would have been
think
in
there
here.
was
I want them to show.
Yeah.
I want them to show the after one. I said this on the other episode. Like, I want to
Yeah.
show them the after.
Yeah, the next
morning
morning.
after doing the Bacardi night, right?
yeah.
Going to the grocery store now.
Oh, yeah.
The liquor
right.
samplings.
Yeah.
Price Chopper. I mean, go to Price Chopper or Hy-Vee. If it's an evening, I mean, you'll walk by and there's a vodka tasting, or they're sampling some new beer or spirit, and it's
Yeah.
just a completely acceptable thing that's going on. And it's not their fault that I have a problem with alcohol. That's the other part of that. Is
Yeah.
There's Sarahs everywhere.
Yep,
We're just not Sarahs.
that's right.
We're our own people. So, but again, going back to accepting that that's still a beautiful thing.
For sure. Okay, I did not know this was going to turn into the solid hour of alcohol discussion, which is totally fine. We had so that was one question
At the beginning.
that went into all of this.
Good thing I only did 2 questions.
So I think you covered a lot of it, but the other question, Kelly, is what's your relationship with mental health?
So, my mental health journey is also it's kind of interesting and kind of goes hand in hand in that same flow. So when I was younger and started going to counseling due to what I was experiencing from my alcoholic parent and the trauma that I had received and other things from my childhood, I got very jaded towards professional help very early. The first therapist that I developed a rapport with and had really opened up to, I was 12 going on 13. And I had 6 sessions. I was finally feeling comfortable. I had finally opened up to my therapist about some traumas that I wasn't even really sure of. My brain did the really cool thing that loved me so much. I don't remember most of my childhood, and I love that. I let it be where it is, and what's there is there, and I process it as it comes. But when I went in for my 7th session, I was dropped by my therapist because it came about that he was also seeing my biological father.
Oh.
So that was my first experience with therapy, and what that told me was that I wasn't as important, and it took me a really long time to acknowledge that I deserved help too. So that was really hard. I didn't start seeking. Actually, when I went to inpatient was the first time that I had gone to an actual therapist. Since then, I hadn't talked to anybody. Everything had kind of been processed on my own from then. I have depression and have tried SSRIs and SNRIs, and I have really fun brain chemistry that only does well for about 10 to 12 weeks. And then I get sent into a pretty manic swing constantly. So medication.
It sounds like I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I said it sounds like a lot of your codependency and being taking care of other people was much easier, because then all the stuff that was going on inside of you was just too much for you to deal with. So it's easier for you to turn it around and just help other people. And that's where some of the codependency came from.
I think my favorite thing I told myself for a long time is, as long as I'm taking care of other people, it's not me that needs help.
Yeah.
And I think that had almost everything to do with the work that I chose to do in my career and things like that. So that happened. I did not seek any medication. I was very just kind of in the moment with my mental health, and have gone through manic episodes. But again, I've got depression that I'm not medicated for at this time, and have gone through manic swings for most of it. I acknowledge my mental health and am much better about kind of getting ahead of my down cycles. And because I'm slightly manic, which I don't know if anybody's ever met me, but it's just kind of a whirlwind. Sometimes on a phone call, I can go through every stage of grieving in about 5 seconds. But I tried to go on SSRIs a couple different times as an adult, and I switched to an SNRI that was also not effective. And I'm learning now more as I am more into the mental health field that maybe that wasn't the right option, and that there should have been an added factor onto that to help me stabilize and I should have gone to an actual mental health professional instead of just going to my primary care physician because of cost or because of shame or because of whatever it might be. I went to my doctor and I said, this is where I'm at, and and I also have anxiety that's kind of secondary to a lot of my own behaviors, actions. There's less anxiety when I have more self-care going on and I take that time out for myself. And you have days still. But I struggle a lot with projecting my past traumas onto people when I'm in my manic cycles. I will decide how people feel about me. I will decide how people act before it happens. I will go as far as to create alternate situations where everybody is talking about me behind and talking about how terrible I am and how inadequate I am at things. And so I kind of create this own narrative to like keep that codependency going in my own head, because that's what propels me into, I think, being productive and happy and beneficial to society, which is, not the healthiest ever. But I've struggled a lot with my own mental health and where I'm at as far as self-love and what love I'm giving to people. I said earlier that words matter, and up until the last few years, I had not had many healthy relationships where that was something that was acknowledged by my friends, whatever relationship that might be. When I say my relationships as a whole, there was a major shift in that about 4 years ago in what I allowed around me and what I was allowing in my space, and finally developed that kind of self-respect in a way. So my alcoholism, and I, thank goodness that was always my substance of choice, has always gone hand in hand, and my self-worth has struggled a lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
So you nailed it with the I've said this before on the show, and Judy's seen me. My primary care practitioner, he's the best. Field surgeon in the Army, been in 5 combat zones. He's seen some crazy shit, but same thing. It's like, well, hey doctor, I've got depression, I got anxiety. He's like, well, what do you want to do? I didn't get, it was a long journey until I started seeing the therapist and a psychiatrist to do medication management, because they know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And I know it's easier said than done, Kelly, but I'm just throwing it out there. For me they diagnosed me with anxiety, depression, ADHD, and hypomania. And Judy's seen me go through some mania. I've got some killer projects done around here that I don't really remember doing.
Yeah.
Very productive.
Yeah.
I'm glad
sick.
I'm glad you guys are bringing this up, because we talked about the spectrum before, and I think we're going to talk about this at another episode. The alcohol use disorder, as in the DSM, is a variety of things that are coalesced together. And what I'm trying to say is, it's not just I use alcohol as I'm dependent upon it, regardless of its outcomes, even if it's negative. That's the short of it. The reality is, it stems in very many behavioral coping mechanisms and chemical items. So it exists in many parts of our brain chemically, also behavioral, also, how we relate to a lot of stuff. My point is, for this journey, you have to explore, and I would recommend this, different modalities, meaning I can't just go to AA, maybe that might speak to a certain part of me, but, if you have other issues, chemically, brain chemical wise, talking to people that are specialized in those areas to reflect and shine a light on that portion. Also, talk therapy, somatic therapy, physical therapy for some, like there are so many avenues, and don't think that one is going to solve it for you. So I'm very proud. Again, I like to share a lot of, I'm so proud of you, because learning our language and to what can speak to that is part of that journey. For me, I had to learn to gravitate to certain areas, and that's not going to be your same roadmap either. And you speaking to that is very impressive, because we don't know the future, and it's scary sometimes not knowing that. But going through that and going through those different modalities, I enjoy hearing you two speak about understanding how the SSRIs, because I'm getting educated on that. My portion didn't have anything to do with it, but I can reflect on a lot of that and see how that impacts you guys.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, thank you for that, Patrick. And going back to when you were talking about your struggles with, the triggers and drinking and everything, I noticed me doing something that you do too. Did you hear me? I was like, call us, come over. I can't fix it, but it's just that wanting to nurture and help. I don't know.
I think there's two things that I've learned from my sister and brother-in-law. My brother-in-law, the one thing that he says every day is, I'm stoked to be sober one more day. And it's just that moment. It's just this day. It's not tomorrow. It's not yesterday. It's just this day. And my sister said, when I was having a really bad anxiety attack the other day, and she said what I needed to do was go look in the mirror and tell my critic committee to shut the fuck up. I don't have time for you right now. Shut the fuck up. And those two things helped a lot for me. But everybody, like Patrick said, everybody has their own cocktail of what's going to work for them as far as therapy or modalities. I mean, for me, it's yoga and meditation, and taking time out to basically enclose myself in my own little bubble for a little while, just to push everybody out, and just to be in my own little bubble and do what I want to do, and read the book that I want to read, or listen to the music that you want to listen to, or whatever. So that helps me, but it's not going to be something that's going to help John or help Patrick or even help you. So yeah, everybody has to find their own, whatever works for them. But definitely, I would agree with Patrick that you need a combination of things to get you on the right path, to get you to where you want to be. And yes, very proud of you for opening up and sharing with us. It's really, really, that's an awesome thing.
You've got a toolbox right here available to you. I think I would like to have you back on and talk more about mental health in the future, if you're willing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we're gonna I think we're gonna go ahead and start to wrap this one up before we stretch it. And Judy and I have an awesome birthday party to go to for a little one. I want to do a quick round robin. Kelly, thank you so very much for being here. This has been mind-bogglingly eye-open. I think we all, man, I'm at a loss for words.
Thank you for giving me a safe space to be honest. I think it's really hard for people, like I said before, if you're not completely on sobriety at that time, I think it's really hard for people to acknowledge that there's different levels to this. And then while our end game is all the same, is to just take care of ourselves in the best way possible. I really appreciate having this safe space to talk about this.
You're welcome. Anytime.
Yeah, we're so grateful that you came on. And like I said the other day on the phone, we are not here to judge. That is not.
That's why I called.
Well, we appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right, Patrick, thank you for all of the input. Do you have anything else to add before we shut this bad boy down?
No, thank you for letting me be a part of the ride. Kelly, it's been a pleasure, and thank you for showing up with your whole self today. I know it's very scary on here, and being in the hot box, being in front of the mic does some very weird stuff, but kudos to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
I got one more thing. My sister, Michelle, says that I'm so proud of your vulnerability, Kelly. I look forward to meeting you next time I'm in Missouri.
Hey, Michelle, go Pack Go.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Oh yeah, you guys are Packers fans.
Yeah.
Oh,
All right, everyone. Thank you for all of the support. Thank you for everyone that's been subscribing to help keep this journey going. Remember, the podcast is live out there if you want to download. Man, it's got the mother's mutilation one has gotten a ton of downloads. That's the best name I could come up with. When you listen to it, Kelly, you'll see why. Happy Easter, everyone. Anyway, if you or someone you know is struggling with suicidal thoughts or ideation, Suicide and Crisis Lifeline out there, 988, give them a call. A good starting point for anyone that wants to start flirting with sobriety or has a loved one or any family member that's struggling with addiction and alcoholism, start with Al-Anon. It's a great organization. I think we could have Michelle on here to talk about Al-Anon for a couple hours, but it's a it's a great place to start. They can help steer and point. Ready, babe? You are loved.
you are loved. Be kind to
Be
yourself.
kind to yourselves.
Be patient with yourself.
Be patient with yourself. We are going to have a lot to discuss on the Sober Mind Rewind on Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Central. And next Saturday, we are going to have a very special guest on, the illustrious, the one and only, Kellen Francis, Judy's dad. We're going to have some sage discussions. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching.
Thank you.
And we'll see you guys next time. Bye.